All right, and welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. As promised, we have Tony Johnson actually in studio this time. He was on the phone last time, but he promised we would talk matchup betting for the Open Championship. The listeners, thank you for fulfilling that promise.
Happy to be here and not hearing any ambulances in the background, too, which should help.
Yeah, what happened? I felt like, I mean, I don't want to trigger flashbacks of October 1st, but when you were on the phone, it sounded something along those lines.
Seemed interesting. I was at the Cromwell in the parking garage, and they were in a hurry to get to looked like the pool area at Cromwell midday.
Yeah, probably another dehydrated hooker.
I would assume so.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a Tuesday for Vegas at this point in the summer.
Very standard.
At Dre's. What do they call them? Thoughts?
What?
Have you ever heard that expression?
No.
It's T-H-O-T. They call them, the rappers, they call them thoughts because it stands for that hoe over there.
Wow. I had not heard that before.
Oh, man.
See, we're already learning things. That's fantastic.
See, that's the first thing you guys are going to learn in this jam-packed show full of information. By the way, speaking of Anthony's, we have Token Tony back after a long hiatus. It's been at least 2 months since you've been on a podcast at this point.
I'd take the under on that, but
I don't know. We've done 2 podcasts in the last 2 months, and I don't think you were on either one of them, were you?
I did one early in June when Sony was in town.
All right, where were we? We're talking Open Championship at this point.
Yes.
Let's get down to business. You're the matchup king there, Tony. This is going to be tough. You're Token today, Token Tony. You're just Token. He's Tony, you're Token. That's going to make things a lot easier.
Seems legit.
All right, Tony, let's get down to business. In the last podcast, we talked about a couple guys. We talked about the red light, green light system. I know that's not how
I know you like that term.
What do you say? What did you say? The fade and fire?
Yeah, so basically guys that I like and dislike going into the tournament before matchups come out. So the matchups usually come out on late Monday or early Tuesday, depending upon which book that you are in or if it's online, live, etc. So your pre-prep has to focus on guys that you're going to like and dislike, and then so when the matchups come out, I want to be ready to go so I can get the lines immediately if they've made a mistake.
Now, do the lines change frequently as far as these? Because golf's not a largely bet sport, but maybe the majors has a little bit bigger of a handle.
That's exactly correct. So usually lines are not changing all that much. It depends on the size of the book and how much money moves aside. I don't know a ton about this sort of stuff. I know a little bit, but depending upon if you bet at a place like South Point versus William Hill out here, William Hill, it takes more of a handle to move a golf line than it does for South Point. I can speak for sure at South Point that lines have been moved for only $300-400 sometimes. In fact, things have gone down where I've not been able to get a certain line because of money that I wanted to put on something. Whereas at William Hill, they'll take usually any sort of bet up to I think $600-700 without blinking at all. Yeah.
Okay, so a place like South Point, you would say is a little more frightened by a guy who comes in, ready to lay, 500 on a person. They'll still take it, but you're probably going to be one of the last ones to get that line.
Yes.
At that point, is what you're saying.
They may or may not take it. I've been in some spots now.
Come on, I thought you knew Brent Musburger. Doesn't he have a little pull over there?
I hope not. I've been in some spots now where it is actually they have not taken the full action on a line. They'll give you X amount of dollars on like plus 120, and then they'll give you the rest on plus 110 or 115 or something like that. They'll move it in the middle of the bet. And
so they essentially move it like they would a point spread or a small money line.
It's what it appears to be.
Because I would think, if you come in blasting, just off the top of my head, we talked about Thomas Peters. You come in blasting him at 125. His odds, if you throw a dime on there, his odds, I could see his odds going down to like 60-1. That's absurd, correct?
That is absurd. That would be way, way too big of a move. Yes, correct. Because then they're going to have to adjust other players. So remember, if you adjust one player one way, another player has to go another way, and they don't necessarily want to do that either. They have some people in mind. I think I have a general idea of how they're doing futures as well, and there's guys that are ready to move up and down. It's kind of like the plus-minus system, but it's tough to move guys a lot in future betting. You'll see it maybe 5, 10, 15, but at that number at 100, you're not going to get anything probably below 80.
Now, Token, that's something I didn't expect him to say, is the golfers are kind of correlated. One guy goes up, a couple guys go down, vice versa. Mm-hmm. Have you seen something like this happen? I know you bet golf pretty frequently, maybe not as much on the handle as this is going to screw me up. Your Token, he's Tony. Maybe not as much as Tony does. But have you ever seen anything like this?
Yes, I've actually put 100.
Have you moved the line one time?
Yes.
Oh,
I put.
We got to hear your tale.
I put 100 on a golfer. This was about a year and a half ago or so. He was 150 to 1. Immediately after I put that bet in, his odds dropped down to 100 to 1.
That's 50 cents on the dollar right there.
Wow, that is enormous.
That's a pretty enormous bet. I mean,
granted, that golfer didn't make the cut, but
well, naturally, that's probably why they gave you. How much did you say you put on it? $100?
100, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and this was here at the Las Vegas book?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was actually on William Hill.
Really? Wow.
I've noticed William Hill a little more ballsier than other places, but like this morning I saw a few tweets online about baseball futures, and I didn't have an actual source of where they were from. And I said, "Ooh, these are nice." The Braves were at like 45 to 1 to win it all, and I'm like, "Well, I don't know where this is. Let me check what William Hill is." And William Hill, they were 18 to 1, and I'm like, where did they get these lines from? So either someone's lying, or it's just you can't really tell with with situations like this at that point. So my question is that when you move a line that much, do other books see that and adjust to it? I mean,
they can. It just depends on the book and what type of action they're getting. I mean,
well, because Tony, a guy like you, if you see to use the Peters again at 125 to 1,
100.
100 to 1. Okay, let's just call it 100 to 1. Okay. And you fire it at South Point for X number of dollars, they take it down to 75 to 1, and then the other books don't adjust. What's to stop you from firing all around the city at that point?
So there's oftentimes a large difference in odds. So like Peters is 100 to 1 here, but he's only 75 to 1 at other spots, and at stations I think he's like 60 to 1. So it really doesn't matter. Even if they do move the line, I'm still not going to go anywhere else because their line is might even still be lower.
And see, that's a strange thing to consider, because a lot of times, I mean, just from what I mainly follow is baseball and football, everybody's lines are pretty
close,
similar.
right.
But you're saying golf lines can be so skewed. I mean, why would they want to be that? Because if your station's at 61 on Peters, any kind of handicapper with a half a brain says, well, I'm not going there if I can get 40 cents more.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
Or $40 more at per bet or per dollar. I can't imagine why anyone would ever place a bet there. So maybe they're just trying not to have any action on that.
They are. I think it's more worrisome, and they don't really care, and they know they're not going to get a huge amount of handle anyway, so it's just less risk, less worry. It's one of those things that's very strange. You see a lot of the bigger books that are publicly traded. I hate to, we're not going to go into the weird business discussion or anything like that, but if you look at Caesars, MGM, stations, places like that, you'll see that for the most part, future lines are not nearly as good as the places that are on the smaller scale and or not part of the public realm. South Point, William Hill. There's sometimes a few other decent options with Cantor and other things like that. So I found that to be more the case than anything else. Maybe it's just a risk reward for them.
Fair enough. Damn, I had question I wanted to ask, and now I forgot. So we're going to move on. Actually, let's start talking about matchup bets. And Token, is there any matchup, before I talk to Tony here, that you see in the first set? I know that I'm looking over at Tony, and he's got what looks to be his manifesto over there. So I will start with you. Is there anything that jumps out of the page that you see, Token, that you're going to be jumping on either in round one or for the entire tournament?
I've been looking at a few. I probably haven't been done as much research as Tony over there. One first-round matchup to me that kind of strikes out to me is Martin Keimer over Andy Sullivan, and Keimer's plus 105. I think Keimer's more of the smarter golfer in this matchup group, and getting the plus money strikes to me as decent value.
Now, Tony, what would be the reason of Andy Sullivan being 125 versus a guy who's a previous major winner? I know he's not playing like that, but I mean, most times the casual bettor would say, I know Martin Keimer, I don't know Andy Sullivan.
Depends on who your casual player is. Your casual player in Europe is going to definitely know who Andy Sullivan is. I mean, he's a renowned quality European player there, probably in the top 10 in the order of merit already this year. I know he's had some good results. I think it's just that, like you said, Martin Keimer certainly the better scorecard overall for his career and a major winner, a very good record over here as well. Andy Sullivan has never done anything over here, but I think just recent play would be my guess. I haven't studied those two guys all that well, so I can't speak for sure. And a one-round bet is a one-round bet. Certainly there's a lot more variance there, but that would be, I think, the reason why Sullivan would be favored right now is Keimer has not only not played a full schedule this year, but he has not played all that well. He missed, I believe, 2 or 3 cuts in a row at one point in May and June. I know that's not now, but still, that would be the reason.
Pretty recent,
for it. Yeah, it's recent. But again, it's a one-round bet at Carnoustie. A lot of things can happen.
Sure.
I always err on the side. I'm glad you brought this up, that you have an underdog here, because if we look at my sheet of my manifesto, as you like to call it, almost all of the matchups I like are all going to be plus money lines. I hardly ever bet on very, very hard favorites in matchups. It's just not the way to go.
Too high a variance.
Yes, and you have to win so many more to be profitable, and that's just
right. And the Open, I mean, the long-standing reputation of the Open is between wind and water, anything's possible.
Sure.
And nasty bunkers.
And even heat.
This week is supposed to be some pretty sick heat.
Yeah, it's
makes for slow greens, makes for fast greens.
It's going to play. This course is going to play extremely quick everywhere. It'll be a whole lot of fun to watch.
They're comparing it how hot it is almost to when Phil won it last in that extreme heat. So
yeah, that's right. At Muirfield.
Yes.
Yeah. And it played the same way. The course is going to play very, very similar to how it did at Muirfield then, where the ball, you're going to have to play a shot to a specific spot because the run out will be tremendous, no matter really where
doesn't end up where you land it.
Exactly. So players that have the forethought to know where the ball will likely end up versus where it hits on the ground first is going to be the guys that do the best, and that's a very, very, very difficult thing to do. Sounds kind of like not that hard, but it's very difficult.
Fair enough. I was looking here and looking at the lineup here on my computer on Vegas Insider and thinking, man, I don't know a lot of these golfers. I can't figure out who they are. And why is the favorite Billy Horschel? And then I realized I'm looking at the Barbasol Championship. Yeah. So let's get back on track, Aaron. I'm like, there's no way Billy Horschel. I mean, I know who Billy Horschel is, but there's no way he can be the favorite. And where the hell is Dustin Johnson?
If he was playing this tournament, he'd probably rate around 75 to 1, 100 to 1, something around that figure.
All right. Well, a guy who's on my red light list, because I like the green light, red light system, is Alex Noren. He's burned me way too many times, but I think he's on your go.
Oh, absolutely. He's definitely on the go. He just won in France a couple weeks ago. Very, very similar course, weirdly enough, to what we're at this week. Very burnt out there, and the wind actually picked up on Friday and Saturday. I happened to be watching a lot of that tournament because I enjoy that course out there in France, and he played really well. Took a couple weeks off since then, and looks to be ready to go. And his results are very good at the British the last 3 years, so I see no reason why we would want to not be on him.
Now, after we recorded our podcast, Tony, I spoke to Token over here that same night, and he said a guy on his green light list, which I know what you said was Molinari. Francesco, yes. I didn't know if it was Francesco. I would let you.
I don't know if it's that.
I would let you nail it or butcher it.
I think either way is correct, but I believe it's Francesco.
My way's more fun.
I think he's Fettuccine Molinari. That's what he is at this point.
Fair
so, anyways, you can take the floor here and go ahead and give Token Tony a rip him a new one as far as why we should put the red light on him.
Seems like a pretty easy red light based on especially the public. The public perception of Francesco is insane right now. And again, the guy has been on a great run. There's no doubt about that. He's down to 12 to 1 at the stations or Will Hill somewhere. He's like 12.
He's
12 to 1 in this thing.
William Hill, he's like 18 to 1 or 22 to 1.
That's got to be one out of two favorites at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right
He's up there with DJ. He's a favorite.
The thing that worries me about Molinari is putting. He's never been known for a good putter.
Yeah, not at all. Exactly. He is not. He doesn't have any top 30s in any Open championships. Right. So he's never had a top 30 in this tournament, and he's played many times. He certainly made some cuts. I'm not saying he hasn't made cuts, but he's had some very, very poor weekend showings. He's a guy, as you said, that when he struggles, it's with putting and it's around the green as well. He's not all that great around the green. And he has not missed very many greens the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. I'll grant you that. That's why he's been absolutely on fire. But you miss a few greens on a course like this where you can't stop the ball. He's been able to stop the ball everywhere else. He just played in the Quad Cities last week where the conditions could not have been more opposite from what they're going to be now. It was lush, green, and soft for the most part. And just, you could stop it anywhere you wanted to go. I think it's
going to be a total opposite case.
I think it's going to be a total opposite case. A guy that has struggled in courses like this before. He doesn't play very well out here. He plays solely now pretty much in the U.S. It just seems like a perfect fade, especially when the public and Token are so far on one side. I really, really like being on the other side of these things.
Fair enough. I'm not going to take him as my future bet for sure.
Looks like you've convinced him.
No. I've got my mind on 1 or 2 golfers right now.
Right, well, let's stay on Fettuccine here for a second. And just based on the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook, I don't know what you have on your manifesto over there as far as Molinari bets, but I'm looking at him as a 130 favorite against Brandon Grace, one of his matchup partners. Grace 110, and a 110-110 with Justin Thomas. Anything you see there with your guy, I mean, you're putting the red light on a Molinari at this point. Is there anything you see there with actually betting against him in a fade spot with either one of those two? I don't know whether you have it on there or something that you think could be a good spot here in round 1.
I have different fades for Molinari and matchup bets with different players. So that's kind of interesting you bring that up. I'm fascinated with the fact that he's an even money, or he's a 110 with Justin Thomas. That's how far we've gone. I mean, that is how crazy this is right now. Is a guy that is 40th in the world, that is, again, playing great. I'm not saying he's not, but he's on par with Justin Thomas in a 4-round matchup, a guy that has never missed a cut at the British Open, Justin Thomas, and he's not playing incredibly well. He's not playing like he was earlier in the year, but he's still who he is, and I find it fascinating. So, yes, I would be certainly on the Justin Thomas side there. That's not one of the ones I made. I thought there were a couple others that were better. William Hill has Alex Noren over Molinari, and the South Point has Jason Day at plus 135 over Molinari, which is
that's how far we've come.
Completely bonkers. Exactly. That is one of the biggest wagers I have this week. That's how just totally bonkers it is. And Jason will show up or he won't. He's not the great consistent player he was 2-3 years ago. I grant that. I understand that completely. But when he does show up, he will annihilate Molinari in events, and
Absolutely.
That's just what we have to do.
His health has been hit or miss, too, as of the last couple of years as well.
Very true. That's probably part of the reason why maybe not as consistent. So I'm sure that's a great reason.
But Day lately, I mean, at least what I've seen, especially when I've had action on him, Day will let you know by hole 6.
Pretty early. Pretty early on.
Whether you should look to
I agree.
Try to chase your money at that point.
I agree. Yep, you will know pretty fast with Jason. That's true. So it's a little bit scary of a bet, but I love the plus 135. I'll take that all day.
I think a guy that we're all kind of on board the train, and I think everybody really in golf is rooting for him, before the pressure gets really too intense, is Ricky Fowler at this point. I know in the article I wrote for the Vegas Squares podcast website, Fowler's one of the guys I have winning this. I think he needs to get off the schneid and get his first. This seems like a good spot for him. Let's go matchup-wise. What do you have in a spot where, I know he's a green light guy for you, but how much, not necessarily money-wise, but how many are you just finding every single matchup you can find with him at this point?
No, he's not an every matchup sort of guy. He is my favorite to win the tournament, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be on every single matchup. I want to be able to analyze the player he's up against, what the odds are, and just make a decision based on that. So there are 3 that I have found that are South Point related. One is over DJ, and he opened at plus 140. That's now way down. It's now down to about plus 110, 115. The one I like the best, but has moved up a little too much, I should have got it right away, was him over Tommy Fleetwood. And he opened minus 120. He's now in the minus 140 range. And then the one that I actually do have action on is over Rory McIlroy. And I got that one at plus 105. and that's just a standard sort of. I don't think Ricky is going to do anything drastic, and he'll be hanging around and he'll be there, and Rory will have about an equal opportunity chance to beat absolutely right there or to be completely out of the picture. And his record has been very good in Open Championships recently, Rory's, but has not always been. And he will fade. If a course does not fit him or he's not 100%, he will absolutely fade.
He played this course as an amateur, correct?
He did. He was a low amateur in 2007 and played pretty well up until the weekend. He actually had a chance. He was in the top 10 or top 15 through Friday. And there was talk of an amateur finally making a run, and he faded a little bit, but he still played really well. It's a tough course for him overall. This is a course I mentioned back on the call-in that fading the ball as a right-hander, hitting the ball left to right, is going to be a strong advantage here. There's a lot of the holes that move from left to right, and Rory hits the ball mostly right to left off the tee. So my guess is that's going to be a little bit more challenging for him. He's probably not going to hit a lot of drivers because of this, but that certainly then takes his advantage down slightly when he can't be way out there distance-wise.
Yeah, you'll see him hit more long irons as well as like 5-woods off the tee.
I think you're right. I think that'll be definitely a week for him in that regard, yeah.
See, I don't know about you guys, but I had a driver that if I was slicing or fading, I just twist the screw and it went the other way. I feel like a professional could do something a little more
Yeah.
razzle dazzle than me just twisting the screw.
Yeah, I don't think it exactly works along those lines.
I mean, I wasn't like slice all the way to fade, but it was, you could not change your stance, not change your swing, and you could draw it back out a little bit. Because I'm a slice guy, so I would obviously be perfect at Carnoustie.
Yeah, really. There's like half the course really moves from left to right. So yeah, you would certainly fit your eye, I'm sure, a lot more than other places.
So staying on Ricky here at this point, let me actually, in your manifesto, these are first round matchups, or these are
full matchups. I don't bet rounds usually until the second round plus.
Get
usually
a feel
more
for a
towards
guy's
the
round
third
on the
and fourth.
course.
Correct, and I want to see what they've said and done. I think a lot of times they talk to the media and say, well, I don't feel like I have it, or things are going on, and I like to utilize that as well, or a potential to utilize that. So yeah, usually more towards the later rounds.
Well, one Ricky full round, full championship matchup that I see that you didn't have, or you may have it and I don't see it, was against Justin Rose. He's plus 125 in that spot.
Saw that, yep, didn't write it down. Mm-hmm.
Is that something that maybe worth...
That's the one I didn't like because
like.
Justin's going to show. So I want to be against guys that have a potential to not show. Obviously, DJ's going to show, but at plus 150, that was just so high.
Yeah, wherever you got that is great because it's 105 here on the Superbook.
Right. I didn't get it right away. That was the opening line, and I did not hit it right away. So that's, again, why I've said you want to be ready and prepared. So when the opening line comes out, you're ready to go. And I did not follow my own advice. I was ready, I was prepared, and I just didn't fire. And as I like to use the poker term, you still have to click the button. At the end of the day, you can have the great bluff and ready to go. You have to click it. I did not click, and now it's plus 105, as you said. So
freaking
frustrating. I agree.
Slacker.
But Justin's going to show, and Justin's fit very well. He's like in the top 6 or 7 in putting this year on the PGA Tour, which is obscene because that's usually been one of the worst parts of his game. And I don't really want to be betting against Justin Rose at any juncture right now.
Forever improving at that point.
Unbelievable.
Let's talk about guys who are not on the radar who could probably make you a little bit of money. And I say you, the people listening, because we know that Tony's going to make money. Who are some of the guys maybe lower down? I know on the other podcast we talked about Thomas Pieters, and that's the guy that sticks in my head. But there's some other guys over there that maybe you don't know, maybe you do know on a surface level that make for good odds for a good matchup bet against somebody who you could find a nice dog who comes up against a guy who, like you said, like Molinari, who's due for shit in the bed.
Sure. So yeah, some of the lower names that we wouldn't know as much. So here's the guy that we had talked about because of his name, because his name is so funny. Tyrrell Hatton is up against Patrick Reed, and at South Point you can get Tyrrell at plus 100 right now.
That's an awesome name, Tyrrell.
Tyrrell is a great name. It's true.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the name, I'm like, oh, they got another black guy on tour. I thought it was Terrell.
That's the first thought, yeah.
I know. And then
the last name doesn't mislead you either.
I watched it at Shinnecock, and I'm like, man, he's like a puny white guy.
Weird little white dude.
English
with a
dude.
Very strange accent. A strange English accent, too. Yeah, it doesn't fit at all. But, yeah, this is another one of those spots of yay or nay, as you said. A smaller player that a lot of Americans won't know as well. He has won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship back-to-back years, which are played on different links courses throughout Scotland and England. And he's really fit for this type of golf. Obviously, as you said, being a small, little diminutive guy, he slaps it around really nicely, hits a mostly left to right ball, and his short game is totally nails. He doesn't miss a lot of shots, and great putter, and just an excellent all-around player.
Alrighty. I've actually been talking to people about this. A lot of people, in my profession, a lot of the guests and the customers that I see, are recreational or degenerate bettors. And so a lot of people are telling me that they've heard, or they're either making this up out of thin air, the guys who did well at Shinnecock should have continued success here because it's the most, Scottish Links style course that they're going to play all season. Or is that completely irrelevant?
Relatively irrelevant, in my opinion.
Relatively irrelevant.
The only thing that I would say is that at Shinnecock, guys were challenged in a way that they're not challenged often, and I think mentally, if you watch guys and how they deal with things mentally, you might get a little bit of a look into guys that can actually deal with this and guys that can't. There was a wind change at Shinnecock too on Thursday.
Wind change here too.
Yeah. No. There's a thing to this. There's a point to this.
Okay.
So all the way during practice rounds up to Wednesday, they played with a certain wind. A wind that went a certain direction. And then on Thursday, the wind completely changed and was really strong. So guys that had not at all practiced on this had no chance whatsoever and had no idea what to do. And so that type of thing, guys that played okay that day are guys that you would maybe think that would have a chance here. But based on the actual course and setup, they're actually not set up at all similarly. I don't know who necessarily said that, but the bunkering is completely different. Here, and it's really a totally different course in the sense of how it's, the architecture.
But that can almost happen anywhere, correct?
What do you mean?
As far as wind change and a course. Now, let me ask you, you would know this more than I would. When these guys play their practice rounds on Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday, pin placement's not the same Thursday morning, is it?
No, but they know what they are, though. They know what the pins will be Thursday through Sunday. They have that already known.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
they have a chart of every green, how it slopes, how it breaks, and all that. So sometimes in the practice rounds, they're not going to go after.
They don't even hit at the holes that are there.
That's what I was wondering. Do they even hit at the pin? Because
no.
I need to hit it. I need to hit where the pin will be on Saturday when I need to, make up 4 strokes.
Exactly correct.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. Guy Token Tony likes is Bubba Watson as well. What are your thoughts on matchups for or against Bubba?
Bubba's a guy I don't like particularly in this tournament. More so because of, as we've talked about, moving the ball. I don't want to keep beating the dead horse here, but Bubba off the tee much prefers to hit a fade, and a fade for him moves the ball from right to left. So it's just a difficult spot for Bubba to hit a lot of drivers. I mean, he's going to hit drivers anyway because that's all he does.
This is not a situation where a correction could be just sliding.
No.
Because I know I do that.
Right, I understand.
Oh God, I'm slicing. Let me aim a little left. Oh crap, it went straight.
No, he's trying to play specific ball flights in a certain way, and in order to, it's tough to adjust. The more adjustments you make with a club, physically you're talking about, like change the club head spot or a shaft or whatever, the more you're just going to generally run into problems because you want to have consistency with the clubs that you have. In fact, we'll see guys that often they change clubs, they change club companies, sponsorships, and they tend to struggle for a little bit because it's very, very hard to be consistent
It's got
with
a
new
different
stuff.
feel for them too, and
Right.
completely different touch.
Exactly. So the reason I'm not liking Bubba is because of that, one, and two, he has traditionally not played well here, despite the fact that you would think his game might fit. And I think the reason is because he likes to fit the ball and move it always, and he finds spots that he's used to hitting at. Like he'll hit at a certain tree and he knows he can curve the ball 30 yards, from this tree. There are no spots to hit at links courses out here. It's all flat, barren, nothing. There are no trees. There's no setup. But yeah, there might be some TV towers and things like that to help when the tournament's going on. But besides that, it's very hard to aim at places like this, and I just think it doesn't fit him, and he gets really frustrated. And the ball will run out, especially this week with all the run out there's be. The ball's going to run out and go into a lip of a bunker, and he just doesn't deal with things like that well.
Yeah, he's going to have to hit it sideways out of it.
Right. So again, if you're going to bet on Bubba, I think a matchup bet is a very poor option. If you're going to, I would say you go for the gusto and you go for a win bet, because in case I'm wrong or what my thinking is incorrect, and he actually fits well here, he could definitely go on and win. Right. So he's a guy you go for the gusto with in a spot like this. There's just too many courses that fit him, both either Travelers or Riviera or even Augusta, that I'd be much more confident in a matchup bet against other general players.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards another one. In fact, is Mr. Smashers himself, which is Louis
Oosthuizen.
Yeah, Louis we don't know much about. Louis hasn't played as much this year as he has in previous years, and he hasn't really been injured either. I think it's just been decision more than anything else. So
I agree, yeah.
Louis is a wild card. Louis a total wild card. And
the thing I like about him the most, as you were talking about, he can hit those certain targets to funnel down to the hole, as well as give himself good opportunities, and he's good with his short game around the green, too. So
he is. He's a good all-around player. Louis is an option. He's not a guy I've specifically looked at, but certainly would not be shocked, and we never really are anymore when he comes out and plays well.
So before I get into some interesting props, I want to talk about also cut bets, or something I like to look at as well, because like you say, when you talk about these guys, he'll be there. Well, you feel like if they'll be there, obviously nothing's set in stone, but if you feel like, a guy like Justin Rose plays solid and conservative, he's going to be there unless something completely goes wrong.
I agree.
You're going to pay a little bit more, equity in those spots, maybe, -2. Is that too much to give up, in a spot?
To make a cut?
To make a cut.
Oh, he'll be way more than -200. Should be.
I'm trying to find something here.
I think he's -350, actually.
Okay, that's...
Justin Rose to make a cut?
Yeah.
That's not a terrible line.
I mean, he probably will be. You got Tiger at -400 to make a cut.
Okay.
So that one's a little more volatile because, well, he's Tiger Woods. We've all seen the last decade of his life.
Yeah, you get something in the 300 range for a guy that is very, 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 very likely to be there at the end, then I'm all for it. I don't like to lay, massive minus money lines in general, but if you're in such a great spot, I'm totally in. Like I have.
Well, how about a T10 prop at that point?
Top 10 bets, yeah. So I'm a fan of top 10 bets as well. Again, as long as you're getting proper odds for where you are.
Rose is +140 at this point.
Yeah, that would not be enough at all.
No?
No, I don't think so. So if you look at the field, you take 140-ish players, and he's got to be in the top 10 of 140, and he's 18-1 to win. Divide it out. I mean, that's
so you would like more in a sense of Fowler at 180 finishing top 10, or you don't like that either?
Yes, I wouldn't bet that one as well. I try to stay away from favorites in the top 10. I prefer top 10 bets for heavier underdogs. I don't know how far they go at Westgate.
Well, Phyllis is +500 to finish in the top 10.
That would be. Are we talking Mickelson?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be more of where I would be.
Maybe you're talking Phyllis from Office.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but yeah. That would be more of the sense of where I would want to go. I'm not sure.
I call him Phyllis.
I would want to bet on Phil. Okay. I would not want to bet on Phil, but that, yes, the +500 and on up range is sort of where I'm at. I like guys that are way up there. I don't know, again, how far they go back. I know that's a bet I usually make online, but there's some guys with some really good ones, like one of our weird, strange, total outliers, Calcavecchia, is 100-1 to top 10. So there's, I think, some strong value there.
Yeah, if you think he's going to be,
somewhere there, right?
Like
and one out of every 10, 15 years, Calca is just going to be there. Not nearly as much as anymore. But if you look back throughout his career, even from age 45 to 57, wherever he is now, he's been in the top 10 twice then, or at least very, very close to. So 101 is
if he does it once every 9 years, it's profitable.
Yeah.
at 100 to 1.
I'm looking at the Superbook, and you could pretty much bet anybody inside the top 10.
Damn.
DJ's minus money to be inside the top 10.
That's an interesting one. I mean, he is the favorite, so naturally it would go hand in hand.
It's minus 105. Next favorite is Ricky's plus 110.
My bet that I find interesting, or it's not my bet, but a bet that I find interesting is these clump winners. And I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but you have a clump here of Rose, Fleetwood, and Stenson versus the field, essentially. And the field is minus 800, and a win by one of those three is plus 550. I mean, that's not the ideal matchup. I mean, you do have a former major winner there, a couple of them, plus Fleetwood. You know, they like to call him Fairway Jesus at this point.
Fairway Jesus. That's good.
Well, it's his course, but that, like you said, was in a Pro-Am, and it's different, complete setup and all that. So,
but I mean, a situation where you like Fowler, Thomas and Spieth could come out. I mean, Spieth's the defending champion. A 3 clump like that at plus 600. I mean, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, I would want to see what you could bet the same amount on all 3 guys. What if you bet all 3 guys individually as a future winner? That's, I think, how that goes. Usually they juice those a lot harder, those type of props, versus just making future bets.
Okay, so
it's similar to like if a team is down. I'll make like a basketball comparison. If a team is down 3-0 and you want to bet on the other team to win the series, it usually makes more sense to bet on that team to win the next 4 games individually and just recycle the money versus betting like X amount of dollars on them.
Double up, basically.
Yeah. So you want to bet on them and then recycle the money. It almost always
I'm
comes
learning
up
things because I've done that before. The Blackhawks were down 3-1 against the Blues one time, and I just bet them to win the series, and I think I got 7-1 odds. But you're right. If I'd have just rolled it over,
correct.
Man, these fuckers at the books are good.
Yeah.
That's why we got Tony Johnson here helping us out at this point. So
I'm looking at
well, those guys are all in the 16 to 18 to 1 range. So betting all 3 of them, what do? You bet each of them $33 at that point, and
we'd have to do the math on it. Yeah, I don't know.
If you liked those 3 guys instead of paying $600, those bets got to be more for the no at that point. Even though they're heavily juiced, you got to think I got the field against 3 guys, but I'm paying 9 to 1.
I agree. It's more of I think the best spot you're going to be in is finding no's there, but then you have to deal with how much money do you really want to win at minus 900. What are you going to start laying out? $2,700 to win 300. I mean, it just seems. I don't know. It's over 3 days. 3 or 4 days. It could be nice if you do that a few times, but you need to have a lot of cash to be ready to go there, and it just doesn't seem like the best way to utilize money. But
I'm looking at an interesting prop. It's leader after first round, and it says next to it, dead heat rules apply. Do you know what that is?
So that's if there's a tie. Yeah. So if a tie goes down, you divide out the payout. So basically, if you have all the
tied, then you'd split it in fourth.
Correct. So you'd split it. So instead of let's say
6 guys are tied, you only win 1/6 of your
1/6 of what it would be. That's right.
Okay, 1/6 of your payout.
Yeah, correct. So they do that a lot with.
You don't lose there though, correct? You'll just win a smaller.
You'll just win a smaller amount. They do that a lot with the top 10 bets. So for a top 10 bet, most of the time it's dead heat. I don't know if it is at Westgate. Other places it is. Where if you tied for 9th, but there's 3 golfers that tied for 9th. So you place that out as 9th place, 10th place, and 11th place. Mm-hmm. So you would only actually get 2/3 of the total payout.
Yeah, and here it says 2 finishes in top 10. It doesn't say dead heat.
I don't see any dead heat rules.
That is good. So that's a good thing. So if you can get a place that has a top 10 bets without dead heat, that means that all T9s pay. That's a significant upgrade because clearly sometimes you can have 8-9 people tied for 9th, and that's a big difference. I actually bet mostly at a place that does have dead heat rules for top 10 type bets, but the odds I think are so significantly higher than other places that it almost does make more sense. But yeah, I mean, non-dead heat for those type of bets are very good.
Let's talk about those cut bets we kind of touched on for a second there. Who do you like in a sense? Because what I'm looking at in the sports book is a couple of the big names: Spieth, Thomas, Fowler, Koepka, Phil, DJ, Roar, etc. They're guys that you've found on another site, or even these guys where you're really leaning heavily one way, whether it be the yes or the no.
Sure, I don't know what the odds and money lines that you have going on there, but certainly some of the names that you read out are I think very, very, very likely to not only be there at the end.
I mean, we talked about the Justin Rose at 140. You said it wasn't enough value at that point.
Rose is minus 140 to make the cut?
Plus 140.
To make the cut? No.
Oh, excuse me, that's a top 10.
Yeah. Rose on here is minus 700.
I don't.
Okay, I was going to say, that sounds right, because I got Fowler at minus 600 here. I didn't bet it, but that's...
Fowler, that's why I'm showing right now.
What are you on?
Oh, Superbook.
Well, what am I missing? Are you on? Whatever.
You got to tend to lay a lot of heavy money lines if you want big
finish making the cut. Like here, Spieth is minus 400.
Yeah, I mean that's
he's too volatile. I'm just saying. I'm just giving you the first one I see here.
Right.
I might not have a full roster like he does with this.
I kind of feel about it how I feel about everything. This is going to be a boring answer, but I want to analyze each specific one and take a look at past results, how they're playing, everything, and see if it fits, see if it makes sense.
Past results.
So you don't.
Situations.
You're not a fan of the cut bets, then?
I'm not a fan because usually there's a lot of added-on juice to that. These are the bets that the books make a lot on. That they have the significant advantage.
Well, what's a way to beat the book in that point? Because you can't bet a matchup bet because they could still make the cut and get beat by the guy in front of them, though.
Sure.
So is there a spot there?
Spot to beat the book in cut bets?
Well, in the first 2 rounds. Not really.
No, I think if you really don't like a player or you really, really like a player, I think the best way to do it is to find a matchup against a player that you don't necessarily like very much or that doesn't fit very well, and so you have a bet on a player versus a player you don't like, and you're not, having to pay.
So is there a spot that you like a player to obviously make the cut, but obviously
there's
not?
a few. Yeah, no, there's a few. I did look. There's a few. So I like.
No, what I meant was taking away the cut bets. I see what you have as far as makes and misses cuts, but I'm saying you can't beat the book that way because of the juice. So is there a guy that you saw that you know is going to make the cut that can also beat a guy in your matchup bets? Is there a specific guy there?
Yes, I have.
Other than your Fowlers, is what I'm saying.
Right. I have. Interesting, because we talked about Bubba Watson. I have Matt Kuchar over Bubba Watson. That was at William Hill minus 110, and him to make the cut is the line that I had was minus 235 for Matt Kuchar. So I actually think 235 is very viable there. He's missed a few cuts recently. Certainly not last year when he finished second, but he has missed a few cuts recently at the British. But he's been extremely consistent overall, and then him to beat Bubba Watson, I think, makes a ton of sense because we know he'll just be generally consistent and fine, and Bubba's totally hit or miss, and I think much more of a miss.
But that's your tournament bet, right? That's not your
correct
individual round?
No, I don't make any individual rounds until at least Friday, but more likely Saturday, Sunday, if there are any to be made. The variance on the single round bets, because obviously anything can happen in one round, is I tend to stay away from them unless you have a really, really good type of situation. Sometimes there's other things that come up. I write down things like if people have had, they've just had children, there's like birthdays, things like that. Sometimes people play really well on those type of days or they play poorly, whatever, based on things like that. So, I have Paul Casey's birthday's on Saturday. I looked it up and I looked at the last 4 years and it's come on the Open Championship twice. And 2 of the times he didn't play, and then 6 years ago he played once, and I think he averaged 68.2 or something, 68.25 in those rounds.
So what does that tell you? If he didn't, half the time he didn't play, the other half, well, not half, the other times he played well.
Well, I think he didn't play because there's not a tournament day on his birthday, and the other times he played well.
Oh, I thought you were saying he didn't play the British Open.
Yeah,
he didn't play the Open because it's my birthday.
Right. So, sometimes guys maybe they might party, they might do something else, and so or the numbers don't really show anything. But for him, they showed that he actually maybe it's all coincidental. I have no idea. I want to evaluate it when it comes to Saturday if he's still there. But he had played well all 3 times that this birthday fell on a day of the tournament. So
now. I'm kind of in this cut bet mentality right now.
I know you are. I know. I tried to get you away from it, but you're right
fine.
back on it. No, it's fine. We can keep going. I have a guy that I like to miss the cut that we already talked about.
Okay.
Our favorite Italian. I got him at plus 335 to miss the cut.
To break the cut?
Yeah, Molinari. Yeah, right. I think that's fantastic. I love this 335. Big fan.
Big fan of the 335.
Did you see that down at South Point?
I did not. That was an online wager, unfortunately. Yeah.
I might have to have you sprinkle some for me there as well.
Yeah, no, that was a good one too. Yeah, the South Point did not have any of the cut match. I think that might just be Westgate. I think
William Hill does.
William Hill. I'm sorry. Yes, William Hill. William Hill's a few, but I did not find any. South Point was actually very stingy on the extra matchups and on the props.
They mainly just had the futures to win
and first rounds and the full matchups. Yep.
Wow.
Right, because I remember last year they had another page of just fun stuff of the finishing score, would there be a hole in one, things like that, which I think are.
I know with the Masters they had a decent sized list for.
You're gonna take that one again, Token? Will there be a hole in one plus 105?
I saw that. I was looking at it. I would lean towards the no.
Did he ever tell you our story?
No, he did not.
Oh, tell it.
No, you're good. It's your story. It's your money, you dick.
So we're watching Masters on Sunday, and I was looking at the odds on my phone of will there be a hole in one on Sunday. I'm like, I'm leaning towards the no, but I mean, the yes sounded good. So before the tournament started, we each took 10 golfers,
something like that, yeah.
And then coming into Sunday, we were rooting against golfers.
Yeah, we picked 10 golfers to do the worst.
Yes. And one of the golfers that I had to do good, he had to do bad. We agreed, what was it, 3-1, 5-1 or something? It was 5-1, I think.
It was 5-1 on the hole in one.
5-1 on the hole in one on Sunday. This golfer comes up out of nowhere.
It's Charlie Hoffman.
Yeah,
oh,
Hoffman. And he comes in, rips one in on, what was it, 17?
I needed the guy to shit the bed.
Okay.
He needs the guy to do well,
okay.
And he needs a hole in one. And Charlie Hoffman steps up and puts one right in the fucking cup.
Yeah. On 17.
Was it 16 or 17? Whatever that one, that famous one. That I know.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I should have ripped up the bill.
Yeah, we split the winner money. So.
Well, speaking of scoring props, I know these are very hard. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's really enough value on getting this right, but the actual score, they've got the number at 272.5. Over even money, under minus 120.
272.5, you said?
Yeah. I mean, for a 4-round score.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't count a playoff, correct? So.
No, that would just be the first 4 rounds.
So if it was 272 and then they went to a playoff, the under would be good at that point, correct? Based on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So curious. I mean,
they do an aggregate playoff. They do a 3-hole aggregate, I believe.
On here.
Right, but those aren't strokes against
correct,
this.
Correct. I'd say, yeah, it's just a.
Because it doesn't actually have any details to this. So
wow,
I mean,
that's pretty far under par. Again, weather is not going to play a significant portion in this thing, except Sunday. Sunday looks like the winds might come up, but
here on Sportsbook, it's over 271.5 at minus 140. Under is plus 110.
At where?
On the Superbook.
Wow,
I'm looking at the same book.
271.5. Wow,
the championship winning score.
It's par 70. It's a par 71, right?
Are you sure you're looking at the Westgate?
Mm-hmm. That's 284.
So he has 271. I have 272 from the same company.
Well, it has the hook on it.
271 and a half. I have a full stroke, is what I'm saying.
Oh, it's 272 and a half.
272 and a half.
It's odd.
No, it's even. 272 is even. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyways, let's wrap it up here with just a couple more. Like, the hole-in-one, obviously, that's a fun one to do. The playoff plus 300 could be interesting. Any of those props entice you at all, or those just kind of sandbaggers?
The only thing that would be is what we're talking about is the actual final winning score. I think this is just an easy course analysis and try to figure out what could potentially be possible, and then how good can a winner be? So in these type of
68, that's a 68 on average.
Yeah, and that's playing really, really well on a very difficult course. Now the only issue that we have is unfortunately not knowing and not having seen. It would be a lot easier if we were out there and actually visibly able to see. I know it sounds really weird, but
it'd be cool.
You can see how guys, if they're really able to fly certain bunkers that look like they may not be able to on paper, but they actually can. And if you get a lot of rollout after flying some of the trouble, you might be able to go driver wedge into one of the par fives, and one which could really significantly change things because we don't know enough. But knowing weather-wise and it not being a significant disadvantage, it seems like a low score is potentially possible, although that is very low. I certainly would not want to be on the under in that number. That's just.
You think the juice is the right way to go?
I do. If I was to be on that one, that's the only one that I think we can kind of quantify a little bit. Making a hole in one is not really very quantifiable. I mean, that number is probably going to be about what it should be. and a few of the other
Pretty much
ones.
even money at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you want to go out and scout the course and the players, but I mean, at this point in time, I know Apple and ESPN are in a competing bid war right now for our podcast. So once we actually settle on an agreement, we will send you out to wherever the next one is.
Wow, I could be very, very good with on-course analysis. Very good. I'm in.
He'll be the next Mark Kilkovecki.
Yeah, the next call.
I'll follow Calc, absolutely. Yeah, he'll have me too. Calc's an easygoing guy.
The next call on my phone from one of those guys will be the first call.
Fair enough. I believe that Calc could be on this podcast.
Speaking of that,
if you wanted him.
Anyways, so let's wrap that up here. We took Ricky. Who do you got?
I'm taking Mr. Smashers himself.
Louis Oosthuizen?
Yep.
All right. Well,
that is my pick. I'm going in the Westgate right after here. I'm booking it.
Oh, all right. A right away bet. I like it. Good. Get it in.
Well, we want to thank our sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio and Chai Poker, for listening to this, whatever we called it. But it was a nice little prop bet podcast.
It was.
But we appreciate everybody tuning in. For Token Tony, for Tony Johnson, I am Aaron. We appreciate it. We will catch you on the next one.